John chapter 7, verse 3. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, so your disciples can see your works that you are doing." They're talking to Jesus, and they are Jesus' half-brothers. We learn in Matthew and Mark that this is James and Joseph and Judas and Simon. We also see that later James and Judas, or Jude, become leaders in the church, and they're writing about a witness of who Jesus is, and they're believers. But at this point, we're going to see that they were struggling to believe that Jesus was who he claimed to be, which that would be challenging. I mean, you grow up with him. He's your older sibling. There's a controversy about how he was born out of wedlock and this immaculate conception thing. Like, there's a lot involved with this, and so there's probably a lot of confusion as well. And at one point they will believe, but at this point they're just misunderstanding and saying, hey, your disciples probably need to see you. Here's a picture of popularity and fame, and don't you think you ought to go there? And we're going to see in some of the statements here in a minute that Jesus is going to talk about how they do not believe, that they're not seeing who he is. They're not his disciples. In fact, they're even drawing that contrast, by saying your disciple. You need to go over there, show your disciples. They're not getting it. But it is helpful to think that when James and Jude become believers, they've got an idea of who Jesus is from very early on. So when it's said later in the church that he was sinless, they can say, yeah, we see that now. We understand that now. We grew up with him. What a testimony to who Jesus is when your own brothers who lived in the household with you would say, yeah, he's not a fraud. He's really who he says he is. Just at this point in time, they just didn't quite get what was going on. But there would come a time when their eyes would be open, their ears would be open, they would see, they would hear, and they would believe.